Newport, a name that sounds like a summer song by the sea. This small town on the southern coast of California is known for its stunning beaches, yachts gracefully docked in the marina, and mansions standing majestically overlooking the ocean. From a distance, Newport looks like a living painting, a place where sunlight meets the blue sea and everything looks perfect. But beneath that beauty lies another reality, not captured on postcards or tourist brochures. When night falls and the tourists return to their expensive hotels, a group of people begin to search for a safe place to sleep. They are not visitors, not travelers, but residents who no longer have a home to return to. They are a face of Newport rarely seen, the homeless who live in the shadows of luxury. Amid the salty smell of the sea and the crashing waves against the docks, their lives go on in secret. Some live in old cars on the side of the road, others pitch tents under bridges, or in rarely visited corners of parks. Each night, they light a small candle to illuminate the darkness, not for romance, but for survival. The irony is palpable. On the one hand, Newport is a symbol of prosperity, a place where the wealthy enjoy private yacht vacations, five-star restaurants, and beachside parties. But on the other hand, just a few blocks away, people are forced to choose between buying food or gas to keep their cars warm. Life in Newport seems to be divided into two worlds that coexist, but never truly touch. One world is filled with night lights and champagne glasses, while the other is shrouded in cold ocean breezes and endless hunger. Newport was once known as a peaceful coastal town, a place where fishermen earned their living, and ordinary families built simple lives by the sea. But time slowly changed everything. That tranquility began to fade as Newport's beauty attracted wealthy individuals from across America. Small tracts of land near the harbor were purchased, modest homes were torn down, and replaced with luxury villas worth millions of dollars. Housing prices rose rapidly, like a tidal wave, swallowing up anyone who wasn't strong enough to survive. A one-bedroom apartment now cost upwards of $3,000 a month. The average restaurant worker, janitor, or local fisherman's salary could only cover half that, or less. Those who had built this city were now being forced out by inhumane prices. And that was the beginning. When someone loses their home, they lose not just their home, but also their sense of security, dignity, and direction in life. Many of them started out just 1 month behind on rent. But 1 month turned into 2, and suddenly they found themselves on the side of the road, with all their belongings packed in cardboard boxes. Newport's housing crisis isn't just about money. It's the result of an economic system that has turned housing into a commodity, not a basic necessity. Investors have arrived, buying up properties to rent short-term to tourists. Homes once occupied by families have become temporary rental units on online apps. And locals, unable to compete with tourist prices, have slowly disappeared from the city's social landscape. The COVID-19 pandemic has exacerbated this situation. As small businesses closed, many lost their full-time jobs. Some sold their cars to survive, others sold their wedding rings just to pay another month's rent. But when savings run out, options run out. For some, living in a tent or a car isn't an option. It's the only recourse. Nights in Newport are always beautiful, for those gazing from hotel balconies or cruise ship deck. But for those living on the streets, they are the longest and coldest time of day. The sea breeze blows in from the Pacific Ocean, piercing the skin, piercing through thin clothing, as if reminding us that this coastal beauty has a cruel side. Behind the shadows of the dock lights, old cars stand with their windows covered with blankets. There, some sleep, shivering in the front seats, trying to save gas so they don't have to run their engines overnight. Others have pitched tents behind palm trees in the city park, hoping to avoid being spotted by the night patrols. For them, every morning begins with worry. Will they be evicted today, or will their tents be cleared by city officials? For most, home is a place to return to. For them, home is anything that can withstand the wind. A tent, a car, even just a rolled-up blanket on the corner of the sidewalk. And each day, the struggle begins anew. Finding a place to shower, finding food, and keeping belongings from being stolen. Life on the streets of Newport goes on silently. People pass by each day without a glance. Tourists take photos of the pier, while just a few meters behind them, someone tries to heat up leftovers with a small candle. For many fortunate residents, the homeless are like shadows, there, but invisible. The irony is palpable in every corner of the city. A store sells swimsuits for hundreds of dollars, while outside, a man has been wearing the same clothes for weeks. On one side of the street, an expensive restaurant serves fresh fish from the ocean. On the other, someone waits behind a building for leftovers from the same kitchen. And though things seem hopeless, there is an unquenchable spirit. Some of them help each other, sharing drinking water, telling them where a soup kitchen is still open, or simply talking to make the night a little warmer. In a world without homes, solidarity is the last home they have. They are not beggars. They are human beings struggling not to disappear from the map of humanity. Every tent standing in Newport is not just a symbol of poverty, but also a testament to resilience. The resilience to live, hope, and survive in a city that seems to no longer have a place for them. Life on the streets of Newport isn't just about surviving the cold and hunger, it's also about navigating conflicting opinions, complaints, and policies. On the one hand, there are residents who are disturbed by the presence of homeless people in parks, on sidewalks, and along the beaches. They complain about the tents that sprout up like mushrooms after rain, about the scattered trash, and about their perceived diminished sense of security. Some even demand that the city clean up the city, to return Newport to its former glory, clean, beautiful, and welcoming to tourists. But on the other hand, there are those who live behind those tents. People who have lost their homes, not by choice, but by circumstance. When they are forced to move, they have nowhere to go. They take what few belongings they have left, drifting from place to place, like a wave being tossed aimlessly. Each time their camps are dismantled by city officials, some lose clothing, documents, and even essential medicines for survival. The city government finds itself in a difficult position. On the one hand, it must enforce the rules, maintaining order, public comfort, and Newport's tourism image. But on the other hand, they are faced with the reality that regulation without solutions is merely a form of displacement of the problem. It does not eliminate homelessness, but rather moves them from one corner of the city to another. Policy after policy comes one after another. Bans on pitching tents in public parks, restrictions on overnight parking to prevent people sleeping in cars, and cleanup operations called encampment sweeps. On paper, these are efforts to keep the city clean. But for those who are homeless, it feels like a subtle eviction. Several activist groups are beginning to speak out. They accuse the government of turning a blind eye to the root of the problem, enforcing the law without offering humanitarian solutions. Meanwhile, some residents support harsh measures, citing safety and comfort. A moral battle begins, between the beauty of the city and the human right to shelter. At city council meetings, voices collide. Some talk about property values and others talk about human values. But what is often forgotten are the voices of those who have no place in the room, those who are still sleeping under tents tonight, awaiting a decision that will determine whether they will be allowed to stay there tomorrow. Amidst the harshness of life on the streets of Newport, a small light still tries to penetrate the darkness. That light comes not from big governments or grand institutions, but from humble hands that refuse to succumb to indifference. Every morning, on a corner of town near Balboa Boulevard, volunteers from a local nonprofit prepare breakfast for those without a kitchen, without a home, and often without hope. Warm pancakes, a cup of coffee, and a genuine smile. It may seem small, but for many, it's the only reason to survive the day. One such organization in Newport is the Friendship Shelter, a place where their doors are always open to anyone who feels lost. They provide a simple bed, food, and more. They offer a chance to start over. There, each person is treated not as a statistic, but as a human being with a story and a past. Many of the shelter's residents once had steady jobs, families, and even homes of their own. Now, they are learning how to rebuild hope from the ruins of their lives. There's also the Orange County Rescue Mission, an organization that provides not only temporary housing but also job training, counseling, and rehabilitation for those trapped in a cycle of poverty and addiction. For most homeless people, finding employment is no easy task. Without a permanent address, without documents, without identification, employment opportunities are nearly impossible. But in places like these, they find their way back, rewriting their lives one small step at a time. The Newport city government hasn't stood idly by, though its progress has often faltered. Several social assistance programs have been implemented. Rent subsidies for low-income families, a rapid rehousing program to place the homeless in transitional housing, and efforts to expand affordable housing development across Orange County. But none of this is as easy as it seems. Land prices in Newport are sky-high, and permits for social housing are often blocked by resistance from wealthy residents who don't want their neighborhoods to change. For them, the development of affordable housing means declining property values. For the city government, it means a social conflict that must be navigated carefully. Living without a home isn't just about losing a place to live, it's about losing a part of yourself. In a city like Newport, where appearance and status are often the measure of one's worth, being homeless means becoming invisible, as if your existence is being slowly erased from the social map of this beautiful city. Every morning, they wake up not to go to work, but to make sure they aren't evicted from the place they slept the night before. Every day is a battle, not against others, but against shame, fear, and the feeling that the world has forgotten them. Imagine having to walk on the same sidewalk where you used to work, while people stare at you with suspicion or disgust. Imagine how it feels to have your footsteps ignored, and your presence seen as a nuisance, not as a struggling human being. Socially, homelessness creates an invisible wall between us and them. Society begins to build distance, not out of hatred, but out of an unease they themselves don't understand. And within that distance, a profound sense of alienation grows. Many lose confidence, lose their sense of direction, and slowly lose the ability to believe that their lives can change. The feeling of helplessness becomes a poison that eats away at them from within. Day by day, mental stress builds. Depression, anxiety, and trauma become part of their routine, not because they are weak, but because life on the streets demands strength beyond human limit. For some, escape comes in dark forms. Drugs, alcohol, or destructive behavior become a means of survival. Not to seek pleasure, but to soothe a mind constantly at war with reality. For others, the silence of the long night becomes their only companion. But beneath the suffering, there is a humanity often unseen. Many still care for one another, sharing their last loaves of bread, looking after each other's belongings, and even comforting friends in despair. They build small communities from the ruins of their lives, finding a sense of family among strangers who share their fate. Hope is the last thing they have, but in a town like Newport, even hope feels expensive. Many of them still believe that one day something will change, that the government will actually listen, that people will start to care, that they will have a place to call home. But every time the sun rises over that beautiful beach, reality hits them again. They are still here, still on the same streets, still struggling to survive just one more day. Hope often comes in small forms: a volunteer bringing a warm meal, a passerby who greets them without a look of disgust, or simply a night without rain. These simple things feel like blessings, even if the world around them seems to continue to turn a blind eye. But behind those faint smiles, there is a painful realization: not all who hope survive. Some give up in silence. They disappear from the streets, perhaps move to another city, perhaps lose everything, even their lives. Newport, with all its glitz and glamour, often doesn't realize that behind the grand buildings and enchanting beaches, there are souls waiting for an opportunity that never comes. Hope gives strength, but it can also hurt. Because every time they believed something would change, and it didn't, the wound deepened. Their trust slowly eroded, leaving behind a weariness beyond words. But despite the harsh reality, there was something that couldn't be extinguished: the will to keep trying. Every day they woke up, cleaned up, and faced a world that sometimes didn't want to see them. They kept going, not because they were sure they would succeed, but because stopping meant dying, and as long as they were still breathing, even the slightest hope was worth fighting for. Between hope and reality, they walked a thin, fragile line. Sometimes they fell, sometimes they rose. But beneath all the pain, there remained a small glimmer of light. The belief that one day Newport would see them not as problems, but as human beings worthy of a place in this world. Newport is known as a symbol of beauty: its alluring beaches, its majestic homes, and its sunset skies that paint a picture of perfection. But beneath all that, there was a reality less beautiful than the scenery. A story of forgotten people, living amidst the glittering shadows of a world that no longer held space for them. The story of Newport's homelessness isn't just about one American city, but about a mirror for all of us, a mirror that reflects the fading face of humanity.